Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into a moment that, well, it had everyone talking. That courtroom clash between Justice Amy Coney Barrett and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. And this wasn't just, a standard legal back and forth. It felt much bigger, like a real collision of power, of principle, all playing out right there.
Right. And looking at all the analysis, legal takes, reporting, firsthand accounts, the tension was just immediate. You could feel it.
Absolutely.
So our mission here is to go beyond just the headlines. We want to unpack what really happened in that confrontation.
Dig into the details.
Exactly. Look at the key moments, the people involved, and, what it all meant, why it was so significant. By looking at what was said, and maybe even more, what wasn't said, you can try to get the full picture, both sides of it.
And the thing that really set it off was what a lot of people saw as a very direct personal attack from Justice Barrett towards Congresswoman Crockett. Yeah. But the thing that grabbed everyone, I think, was Crockett's reaction. Or rather, her initial non-reaction, that powerful silence. It was something you expected, maybe a shouting match, but this was different, more profound.
Definitely set a unique tone right from the start.
Okay, so let's really paint the picture here. Imagine you're in that courtroom. Usually it's all about decorum, right? Predictable.
Orderly.
But according to eyewitnesses, that feeling just shattered when Justice Barrett leaned forward. Her voice was described as slicing through the air like a blade, just cutting through the quiet.
Wow.
And her words were sharp, very direct. Reports quote her saying things like, "Congresswoman Crockett, your words reek of reckless defiance," and "This court is not a stage for your theatrics."
Not holding back at all.
No. She went on, "This courtroom is not for grandstanding." And then came this, clear threat. "If you cannot restrain yourself, you may find your voice silenced." And commentators pretty much agreed this wasn't just a ruling on procedure. It felt personal. It landed with a sting as a personal attack.
And you could apparently feel that impact instantly, like a wave going through the room.
Yeah.
Journalists there talk about gasps, fury scribbling, clerks just freezing. Even experienced lawyers seemed, uncomfortable, like the usual rules were broken.
A breach of etiquette.
Right. This was definitely no ordinary judicial reprimand. Analysts were calling it a challenge, an ambush wrapped in legal authority.
Yeah.
Everyone knew it was serious.
And in the middle of all that, Congresswoman Crockett, how did she react initially?
Well, descriptions say she was remarkably composed. Shoulders squared, her gaze steady, her silence more powerful than any objection. Just still, like a gathering storm, as some put it.
And that stillness, that initial silence, is really key, isn't it? Political analysts jumped on that, highlighting how it immediately took on this deeper symbolic meaning.
How so?
Well, it stopped being just about Barrett and Crockett. It instantly became this kind of test. A test of whether dignity could withstand derision, whether truth could survive intimidation. It tapped into much larger issues right away. Right. So, okay, Justice Barrett's words obviously carried enormous weight. To understand why they hit so hard, we need to ask, well, who is Amy Coney Barrett? Why did her saying this matter so much?
Yeah, that's crucial. I mean, she's not just any judge. Legal scholars point out she's a Supreme Court justice, one of the most powerful interpreters of law in the nation.
Automatically commands respect.
Exactly. The robe itself symbolizes impartiality. But, many analyses from her critics argue her career has been anything but neutral. For them, she embodies the tightening fist of a judicial system bending toward ideology.
That's a strong take.
It is. And her rise was incredibly fast. Political observers called her a darling of the conservative establishment, someone who was handpicked and fast-tracked.
And framed as Scalia's successor, right? The intellectual heir.
Precisely. Deeply committed to originalism, that pretty rigid belief that the Constitution has to be interpreted exactly how it was understood way back when it was written, no matter how society's changed.
Which naturally splits opinions right down the middle. Her supporters see that as principled, consistent, but critics see it as, dangerously inflexible, resisting change almost as a rule.
And according to those critiques, that perceived inflexibility shows up in her rulings. They argue she's consistently sided with those who wish to freeze progress, pointing to decisions that weaken protections for vulnerable communities.
Things like women's autonomy, immigrant rights, voting access. Those areas.
Exactly. Those are the examples frequently cited in reports discussing the impact of her decisions. And through it all, her public image is one of, serene, unyielding calm. Like someone absolutely convinced her, critics call that calm certainty, not justice.
It's that contrast, isn't it? Commentators often brought up this perceived paradox, talks about faith and family, but critics say her rulings have hurt both. Champions judicial restraint, but then uses her authority so sharply in this instance.
That phrase, smiling steel, really captured how some critics viewed her style.
So how does that connect back to this specific moment with Crockett?
Well, the analyses suggest Barrett's perceived arrogance isn't usually, loud or aggressive. It's seen as subtler, quieter, and therefore more dangerous.
How so?
It's this deep confidence that her words alone could alter the fabric of the nation. Her reputation is so formidable that basically, when she spoke, people assumed authority. When she rebuked, people assumed guilt. Challenging her, especially so publicly, was rare.
So putting it all together, her words to Crockett weren't just a random outburst. Many sources argued it was like the embodiment of Barrett's entire career. The judge, who critics say consistently used her power to dismiss certain voices, now doing it directly, face to face.
A very pointed moment.
Okay, so that's the weight behind Barrett's words. Now let's flip it. Who is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett? What in her background, her journey, prepared her for that kind of pressure?
Right. And Jasmine Crockett's story, as you read in her biographies, is quite different. She's not a politician wrapped in privilege. She's often described as the product of grit, sacrifice, and this really core belief that dignity belongs to everyone.
Comes from a different background.
Very much so. Grew up in places where, opportunity was scarce, but resilience was abundant. That experience taught her early that silence in the face of injustice is complicity, and that seems to have driven her.
You can see how that would shape someone.
Definitely. That instinct, that need to stand between power and the powerless, led her into law, then public service. As a lawyer, she defended people who couldn't afford representation, immigrants, facing a really tough system.
Fighting uphill battles.
Exactly. Proving through her work that belonging wasn't granted by those in power, it was claimed through courage, something she lived out.
And she brought that same energy to Congress. Didn't just blend in.
Not at all. By all accounts, she carried that same fire, refusing to dilute her convictions to fit in. Her presence alone was seen as disruptive. A woman of color, being unapologetically herself in those powerful halls, maybe not what everyone expected or, frankly, welcomed.
And she got pushback for that. Labels like too direct or angry.
Oh, absolutely, from colleagues, opponents. But Crockett and her allies, often pointed this out, saw those labels for what they often are. Weapons meant to shame her into silence.
And she just refused.
Actively refused, consciously. It seems like the more people tried to push her into a box, the more determined she became.
What really stands out, though, in analyses of her is her composure. It's not like she doesn't feel emotion, but it's described as the mastery of it.
Yeah, that's a key point. Learning somehow to turn fury into resolve, pain into clarity. That's a skill, and it clearly served her well in that courtroom.
So for her supporters, she became this symbol.
Quickly, yes. Living proof that the underdog can walk into the lion's den and hold her ground. In that moment, she really became a vessel for the millions who felt dismissed, told they don't belong, told to be quiet. She carried that weight with her.
So, okay, she'd faced tough situations before, maybe even sharper insults. But this stage, the Supreme Court hearing room, was different.
The highest of stages.
Yet the consensus from the accounts we reviewed, she was ready.
Prepared for that moment.
Right. So let's take you back into that courtroom. After Barrett's initial words, the atmosphere is described as just tightening, like a slow tightening of a noose.
Tense.
Very. And Barrett didn't back down. She escalated. Her voice apparently stayed cool and clipped, but she repeated more forcefully, "Your rhetoric borders on disorder. You are not above this institution. You will learn to respect its gravity." Legal commentators saw this as a deliberate performance, designed to put Crockett on the defensive, make her react in front of everyone. Barrett added things like, "It is unbecoming to turn serious matters into theatrics. This court demands maturity, not spectacle."
Really trying to frame Crockett negatively.
Exactly. But Crockett's response, still unwavering, her pen didn't move. Her gaze, reports said, was unwavering, almost defiant in its calmness.
That silence just continued.
Yes, and it spoke volumes. Every second felt like it was a mirror reflecting Barrett's arrogance back at her. The longer it went on, the more you could feel the unease, the anticipation building.
Tension must have been incredible.
Oh yeah, in the gallery, murmurs grew louder, and outside the courtroom, social media was lighting up. Hashtags began to stir, like the storm was gathering momentum online too.
And Barrett sensed this shift.
It seems so. Reports say she doubled down, her words coming faster, her tone colder, ending with that declaration. My authority here is absolute. Like she needed to assert it forcefully.
Which brings us to that power shift you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. Crockett's composure, this unbreakable quality described as steel beneath velvet, somehow became the real center of gravity. While Barrett, despite declaring absolute authority, started to look, well, increasingly frantic, trying to get a reaction from Crockett that just wasn't coming.
The silence was actually winning.
It felt that way. The suspense just stretched and stretched until, as one account put it, it felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Everyone knew something had to give. It wasn't just quiet. It was the silence of a storm gathering strength.
A powerful description.
It really captures it. And it underlines that this was never really just about legal points or procedure, was it?
No, not at all. As so many sources pointed out, the symbolism ran much deeper. It was fundamentally about who gets to define the soul of America.
How do you mean?
Well, Justice Barrett, for many observers, represented more than just herself. She symbolized a system, a history, an entrenched power structure that, critics argue, has historically aimed to silence certain voices.
In Crockett.
Crockett's presence, her voice, her perspective in that room, it was framed as an inheritance, a hard-won right to be heard, representing generations who fought for that right.
And that's why it resonated so strongly. People recognize that dynamic.
Exactly. There was this immediate, almost gut-level recognition in the room and watching across the country. People understood this wasn't just an argument. It was a test of whether dignity could withstand derision, whether truth could survive intimidation. The stakes felt enormous.
A proxy war, almost.
Yeah, that's a term used, a proxy war, a cultural battlefield. Every word, every look carried the weight of generations, mirroring historical struggles. It was way bigger than just a hearing.
And the public reaction reflected that. Intense.
Absolutely. Immediate and intense. Social media feeds lit up. People were furiously typing, taking sides. It wasn't passive viewing. America wasn't just listening. America was choosing sides right there in real time. It showed just how divided things are. Which brings us back to Barrett's words. Intended to silence, maybe?
That's how many interpreted it. But ironically, those words ended up carrying the weight of centuries of dismissal. And Crockett, by just standing there, absorbing it with that composure, she became a vessel for the millions who've been in similar situations.
So her strength in that moment offered something.
A chance, yeah. A chance to rewrite the script, as one analysis put it. So we've walked through the tension, Barrett's sharp words, Crockett's incredible silence under pressure. It really was one of those moments where you felt like the whole country was holding its breath, just waiting.
Yeah, and the stakes, as our sources really hammer home, were incredibly high. This wasn't just about winning an argument. The outcome felt like it would either reaffirm old hierarchies or crack them wide open. A potential turning point.
Right. And the feeling was, as the sources described it, that Crockett's next words could flip not only the trajectory of the trial, but the perception of justice itself.
Wow.
It's just a potent reminder, isn't it, that sometimes history hinges on these moments where truth speaks back.
Absolutely. And it really makes you think, doesn't it? How these clashes, these confrontations between powerful people over fundamental ideas continue to shape how we all understand justice and authority and who belongs. They're not just news stories, they're part of our ongoing story.